Hello everyone, so this is the first part in the underrated slash underviewed film series. It's been quite a while since I've uploaded to the channel, probably about 3.5 years. But I'm going to try and be more consistent with the uploads now. Then I'm also going to be having a gaming channel which I will probably start up in January. So yeah, I'm hoping to be more consistent now. And yeah, so I'm basically going to be talking about some underrated and underviewed films. There's only going to be about 6 I'm going to talk about in this one. It's going to be an ongoing series. And yeah, so let's get into it. So the first film on this list is Lars von Trier's Antichrist. So Lars von Trier is one of my favourite filmmakers working today. He's a very controversial director. Obviously a lot of people aren't big on him, but a lot of people do love him as well. And yeah, for me he's just, he makes really sort of bold films that not a lot of other people are making, or maybe they're too scared to make. But yeah, he's also he's got a very distinct style, unlike anything I've really seen before. He tackles themes that are just really interesting to me, and yeah, this is probably, I think Antichrist is probably his most controversial film. It's, you know, graphic violence and stuff, certain things that are in the film. Yeah, so it's mainly 2 characters in the film, Charlotte Gainsbourg and Willem Dafoe. And basically the plot is that they lose their son, and obviously they're grieving the son, and Charlotte Gainsbourg's character takes it really quite hard and develops quite a lot of you know, anxiety. And Willem Dafoe, his character being a therapist, decides to take her to a specific cabin in the woods and treat her himself, and certain things happen. I don't really want to reveal any more of the plot. Some of the most shocking things I've ever seen in a film happen in this towards, well, I won't ruin it, but yeah, really shocking stuff. So Lars von Trier wrote this when he was going through a severe depression episode that he was actually hospitalised for, and he wrote this film, and it really sort of plays into the film quite a bit. It's probably one of the most realistic depictions of anxiety put to film, I think, in that it's got a real sense of dread that captures that how scary anxiety can feel. It's quite present throughout this film. There's also, you know, some really interesting religious themes in the film, which Lars does do in quite a few of his films. He delves into that. The performances are, you know, unbelievable. Charlotte Gainsbourg is one of the best actresses working today, in my opinion, and yeah, she's amazing in this film. I believe she won the award for Best Actress at Cannes. I'm not fully sure on that, but I believe so. But yeah, you know, just from her performances in Lars von Trier's Depression trilogy alone, you know, she's just one of the best actresses working today, in my opinion. And of course, Willem Dafoe is always great. There's a specific music piece that plays throughout the film, which is amazing, and the cinematography is amazing, of course. You know, really that distinct Lars style that he developed sort of from Breaking the Waves onwards. And yeah, again, obviously it is a shocking film. There is, you know, going into this, if you're gonna you know, if you're going to watch this film, if you do decide to watch this film, there is unsimulated sex in this film, so, you know, just be warned going in. And yeah, the violence, you know, it is really shocking. When I first saw it, I genuinely couldn't believe it. But it's a brilliant film. I don't think the violence should be the sole focus of, you know, it's sort of, whenever anyone talks about Antichrist, obviously it is shocking, so people do bring up the violence. You know, that's sort of the main thing they bring up when they talk about the film, but there is a lot of other, you know, things about it to merit, you know, the themes that are tackled in the film and the performances. It's just really, it's an inspiring film as well, that you know, it's just 2 people, for the most part, in a cabin, isolated in the woods. And yeah, it's an amazing film. I could put a lot of Lars von Trier's films on it, to be honest. I think he's, you know, a really underrated director. But yeah, I'm deciding that Antichrist is the one I'm talking about in this video.
The main part of anxiety is physical. Dizzy spells, dry mouth, distorted hearing, trembling, heavy breathing, fast pulse, nausea.
So the next film on this list is Rise of the Foot Soldier. So Rise of the Foot Soldier is sort of a British crime franchise now. There's 6 of these films. I've seen 5 of them. I love the franchise. I think it's obviously brutal, but it starts to get quite comedic as the franchise goes on, and even in this one actually. But the best film from this franchise for me is the first one. I think it's a very, very good film. So this one actually sort of starts off as a football hooligan film, based on, you know, real characters, real people. Sorry. It follows Carlton Leach, as he sort of starts out as a football hooligan and then sort of slowly descends into sort of a life of crime, becomes basically a gangster. And so it's mostly a gangster film, but it actually starts off as a football hooligan film. The cast is great. Ricky Harnett, I think that's how you pronounce his name, plays Carlton Leach, and he gives a great performance in this film. And he was not really huge before this. He wasn't in many films before this, and still hasn't really been in many films. But I think he does give a great performance. He was in 28 Days Later with a small role, but I think he should be given more roles because he was really great in this film. Terry Stone as well was hilarious as Tony Tucker. Craig Fairbrass is, I think he's in every film in the franchise other than 2, and he's great. He's a great actor, and he was in Cliffhanger as well. But he just has that that star. He has that star feel that I think he should just be bigger than he is. But regardless, he's a great actor in this. Billy Murray as well is another actor in this film who was in EastEnders and actually voiced Captain Price, I believe, in Call of Duty series pre 2019's Modern Warfare. But yeah, there's not really much to say other than that it's really funny at times. It's pretty brutal at times. It's very sort of Cockney, it's a real London gangster film. But yeah, it's just a really enjoyable film despite all the the sort of dark elements to the film. It's based on a true story as well. It's based on the Range Rover murders in the 90s in Essex. And highly recommend this film. Very underrated film. It's got pretty bad reviews on, it's a bad rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But I think it's a very good film, and I love the franchise. But this one for me is definitely the best of the whole franchise. So yeah, Rise of the Foot Soldier.
Oh, Rog, you do yourself a fucking favour, mate, because this is your last chance for a fucking peaceful night. Deliver the fucking pizza she wants, or your mum and dad will be down the fucking morgue at 4 in the morning identifying your fucking body. You got me, cunt.
So next up we have a film that was a big part of my childhood actually, Carry On Doctor. So the Carry On series has had 30 films, and I've seen them all multiple times now, but this one has always been my favourite. It was this, Carry On Screaming and Carry On Camping as a kid that I would watch over and over again, but I always really had a soft spot more for Carry On Doctor. It's a classic British comedy that the Carry On films are always repeated on TV, but surprisingly the amount of people that voted for it on IMDB, I believe, is less than 10,000 for this one even, which is one of the more popular ones. So that's pretty shocking. But yeah, I absolutely love this film. I loved it during my childhood, and upon rewatch last year and this year, it's still one of my favourite comedies of all time. So yeah, of course, the Carry On series is sort of a big part of British culture. So yeah, as I said, it's always on TV. And yeah, some are better than others, of course. There is a few bad Carry Ons, but for the most part, they're enjoyable. And then there's quite a few of them as well that are really great films as well, in my opinion. So yeah, this one is basically it's set in a hospital with a lot of the Carry On regulars playing patients, nurses and doctors. Frankie Howard guest stars in this one, and he's amazing in the film. He's hilarious. He's sort of a character that tries to convince people that you can't really get injured, that it's all in the mind, and then of course he is hospitalised. Jim Dale is the focus, and is sort of the main one in this. He's always been one of my favourites of the cast, so I love that he's the sort of focus in this one. Of course, you've got a lot of the Carry On regulars like Sid James, Hattie Jakes, Kenneth Williams, Charles Hawtrey. Most of them here, Joan Sims. All the cast are at the top of their game here. Just basically everyone gives some of their best performances in the Carry On series. Some of the jokes in this are genuinely just absolutely hilarious. Yeah, it's a feel-good, it's a comfort series for me, Carry On. I've always, found it comforting, of course, to watch since I was a kid, and I still do now. It's a classic British comedy. It's one that I will rewatch over and over again throughout my whole life. But yeah, no, I absolutely love this film. I love quite a few of the Carry On films, but this one for me is the absolute best. So yeah, Carry On Doctor.
Oh, hi. Oh, what a lovely looking pair.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Next up is another comedy actually. It's Me, Myself and Irene. Now this is one that a lot of people have watched. It has got over 100,000 votes on IMDb, but it's not really that well rated. And it's not really one that's brought up a lot when people discuss Jim Carrey's, best films, funniest comedies. For me, this has always been one of his funniest films. I think it's probably my third favourite Jim Carrey film, just below Dumb and Dumber and The Truman Show. Again, Jim Carrey films have been a massive part of my childhood. They were always on DVD. I would watch The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Liar Liar, Fun with Dick and Jane, you know, this, Me, Myself and Irene, over and over and over again. You know, sometimes it was just like every day I'd go up into my dad's room and watch it on the tiny, you know, box TV. Yeah, so, and this is, yeah, it's one of my favourite Jim Carrey films for sure. It's always been one of my favourites. Yeah, it contains one of the funniest transitions in cinema history, but the actual plot, so Jim Carrey plays a person called Charlie, and after certain events happen, he sort of becomes a pushover, you know, he lets people walk all over him, and then he develops a split personality where the other part of himself, Hank, comes out and does not let people walk all over him, and it's the complete opposite. And so yeah, he's a police officer and he's tasked with bringing Renée Zellweger's character Irene across the country to a certain area, but then at the same time there's people after her, so there's sort of criminals after her for certain reasons, and so yeah, it becomes sort of a crime comedy. And yeah, Jim Carrey's hilarious in this. You know, the Hank character really allows him to just bring out the most over-the-top aspects of him. The sons in this are great as well. Chris Cooper is a really good villain. Richard Jenkins is great in this. The romance at the, you know, the heart of the film is great as well, but between Jim Carrey and Renée Zellweger, they have great chemistry. And so yeah, it's sort of a crime comedy road trip film. I think the Farrelly brothers, yeah, this is directed by the Farrelly brothers. They sort of specialise in road trips, you know, with Dumb and Dumber, this, Green Book, you know, they're sort of the masters of the road trip comedy genre. But yeah, it's just really sort of satisfying to see, you know, after seeing him get walked all over, that this other, you know, this other persona comes out and just starts to do the complete opposite. Yeah, it's a really hilarious film. It's right up there for me with the best Jim Carrey comedies. One of the best Farrelly brothers films as well. And highly recommend it if you haven't already seen it. Yeah, just a great Jim Carrey comedy that, for me, is actually, you know, one of the best modern comedies of all time. So yeah, I'd advise checking it out if you haven't already.
Every oinker east of the Mississippi will be looking for this sled. Safer to go mass transit. Ready? On 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Next up is All or Nothing, directed by Mike Leigh. So Mike Leigh is a great director for me. He's maybe perhaps not for everyone. He does make very bleak films. You know, his whole career is sort of, you know, when someone thinks of a Mike Leigh film, they think, oh, you know, depressing film. But yeah, I think this is one of his best films, actually, All or Nothing. And, you know, when people talk about sort of the best Mike Leigh films, it's more Naked, Secrets and Lies. And, you know, Secrets and Lies is definitely up there for me. As well, you know, is Naked, but not quite as high as it is for some people. But this, for me, is, you know, like top 3, top 4 Mike Leigh films. I think it's great. So this one's set basically in a London estate. Follows a bunch of different characters, but really the main ones are Timothy Spall, Leslie Manville, James Corden, you know, that sort of family at the heart of it. But there's also Ruth Sheen, Sally Hawkins, you know, it's a pretty, you know, it's a pretty big cast in the film. And yes, I found myself completely invested in this film and all the characters throughout the whole film. It is quite a depressing film. There is some quite aggressive and disturbing characters in this as well. It sort of has that sort of gritty British feel. And yeah, it's very investing from start to finish. It has some of the best performances you'll ever see in a Mike Leigh film. Timothy Spall was just amazing as sort of a depressed cab driver, and his dialogue is great as well. It has an amazing screenplay, this. It gives a lot of sympathy to all the characters in this film, you know, which I always appreciate. And yeah, I don't really want to say too much other than it's set on a London estate. It follows a lot of different characters and certain things happen. And, you know, if you've ever been interested by Mike Leigh, I'd actually say this is a good place to start. I think when people that haven't seen Mike Leigh films think of Mike Leigh, this is sort of the definitive version of Mike Leigh, really. You know, it's got a lot of the things that you'd expect from a Mike Leigh film, you know, the depressing vibe to the film, you know, the British feel of it, of course. Yeah, it's sort of, you know, the textbook example of a Mike Leigh film. So yeah, and the cinematography is really good as well, you know, quite subtle, but the colours really do add a lot of atmosphere to the film. And just another note as well, I've just noticed while editing this video, is that I'm making out here, well, it can kind of seem like here that I'm making out as if it's one of the most depressing films to watch, but that's definitely not the case. You know, there's, you know, although Mike Leigh films are generally quite bleak, there's also a lot of heart, you know, there's a lot of hope to be had. So definitely not a completely miserable experience. You know, it's got a lot of hope, you know, and there's even some comedic moments. So it's definitely not a completely depressing film. So yeah, All or Nothing, one of the best Mike Leigh films in my opinion. Highly recommend it. If you are at all interested in Mike Leigh, if you've seen some of his other films before but haven't got around to this one, definitely recommend this one because it's a great film.
That's life. The old clock ticks, world turns around, tide comes in, tide goes out. You're born, you die, that's it.
Next film, the final film actually I'm going to talk about today is Lock with Tom Hardy. Of course, Tom Hardy, one of the best actors working today. And this whole film basically is set in a car, and it's really just, I think it's pretty close to being, you know, a masterpiece in my opinion. This is a near perfect film, and the fact that they managed to do it where it's just him in a car on his phone dealing with all the things going on in his life. It's just amazing that it managed to be so investing, and yet it is just him in a car on his phone talking to people. There are other voices, of course, but it is just him in the film in terms of what we can see. And yeah, so he's basically, this is one of Tom Hardy's best performances in my opinion. This is right up there with, you know, Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, Bronson, you know, the Cray twins in Legend. I think this is right up there with the very best Tom Hardy performances. And so yeah, he's basically making phone calls, dealing with everything that's going on in his life, you know, with his job. And yeah, obviously the main thing of the film is that he's driving on the motorway to see the birth of his child from a woman that he had an affair with, or, you know, a one-night stand affair. And so he's, you know, dealing with that as well, making phone calls to her, played by Olivia Colman. And at the same time, he's talking in the rearview mirror to his father, who isn't really there. You know, he's sort of imagining him. And so that's quite a disturbing element that plays throughout the film as well. And yeah, the performances, you know, it's just voices obviously, but, you know, Andrew Scott and Olivia Colman in particular, via just phone call, give amazing performances. The film does a great job of making you visualise everything that's going on just by the phone calls alone. It's quite an intense film, you know, it's things seem to just be constantly going wrong for Tom Hardy's character. It's a very bleak film overall, but really does pull you in and just get you fully immersed in the film. So yeah, quite a dark film, quite intense, but with some amazing performances. Of course, again, Tom Hardy is just the only person that you actually see on screen, but there are other great voice performances as well. But yeah, Tom Hardy is just, this is again one of his absolute best performances. It's only about an hour and a half, and it doesn't really feel longer than it is, despite it just being in that one location, because of how immersive the film is. So highly recommend this. If you're a fan of Tom Hardy, absolutely must see. It's one of his best performances, and yeah, a near perfect film in my opinion. I absolutely love this film. Highly recommend it. But yeah, so my last film that I'm talking about today, Lock.
Because it's me driving. Me. Not you. And unlike you, I will drive straight to the place where I should be. And I will be there to take care of my fuck up.
So yeah, that's the end of the first entry in my underrated / underviewed film series. Again, it's been a while since I've done, you know, a film video on this channel, but hope to be a bit more consistent with them now, and I've got quite a few videos lined up that I really want to do, you know, director rankings, Lars von Trier ranking I really want to do, you know, hopefully in the next few months or so. There's quite a few videos I've got planned, so, and again, yeah, I will be having a gaming channel soon as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the first entry in this series. There's a lot of films I could have talked about, but I just wanted to keep it to, you know, 6 or 7 for this video. So yeah, thank you for watching.